remember early on when Instagram came out, people don't notice there was so much hate, so much hate, so much hate for the platform. Professionals that were friends for a long time were like, why are you doing this? Why are you promoting this? It's undermining this, that, and the other. And I was like, I have to, in order to criticize something or know what it is, I have to paint with the brush first to know whether it stinks or not, and to have informed conversations. And now we have a new thing, AI. And I guarantee you tomorrow, it will be something you and I can't even imagine. You have to play with AI enough. Personally, nobody's saying play with it and throw it out there and show the world. I mean, I think that's a mistake. But to understand, what it's doing, what its implications are, how it might impact you.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Eyeshot 50 millimeters. And today we're sitting down with Richard Coce Hernandez. Richard is not easy to define with just one title. Richard is a photographer, a visual storyteller, an educator, and one of the most influential voices in contemporary image making. Today we'll talk about photography, ethics, platforms, AI, and what it means to live in a world and make images in a world that is already overflowing with them. Richard, thank you so much for being with me, and welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. So just do your best to contain me because these things I get overly excited, and it's funny. I always get an opportunity as an educator to be in front of people. I never thought I'd like that. One of the reasons I like being behind the camera. But I find it so empowering in this moment just because where I am in photography, I feel I need to shout back to all the people behind me that actually it's okay. It's better than it's ever been. And I'll tell you why I think so. And that it's probably never been a better time, a visual artist. And I'd like to define myself so broadly and widely because I grew up in a world before an iPhone and before AI. And so there's something to seeing this kind of trajectory. So I'm really, really excited to talk with you and just have this conversation. I really love this podcast for that very reason, and anything that's trying to focus on photography and just talk in a way. I don't think we do this format enough of
Absolutely.
being between friends and just having a conversation and, having it be about art in some sense. I mean, I just think it's it's a saying, it's kind of the last magic in some sense, art that there
Absolutely.
is left, especially in, as you framed it, this ridiculously oversaturated world. But I do want to earmark that and say one thing. My whole career, people have said that. No, literally, in late 80s, early 90s. Oh my gosh, MTV, everything is going. And then, progressively as the internet, we have had more information. There's no doubt that we have been flooded, but I feel like we've always it's always been there, whether we felt it or not.
Yes.
Maybe we're always fluctuating. But I think it's just such a good time to pause and think about all this stuff.
Absolutely. So, and just before we start, I want to leave a very small message to everybody who's watching to please keep liking and keep subscribing, because what's just a very small click to you, it means the world for us. And we've noticed that every time we say subscribe, then you guys do it. So please keep supporting us to have exclusive street and documentary photography content and about arts in general. And since a couple of months, all our interviews are now available as podcasts on all major platforms. So after this, Richard, we can actually dive into this interview. Yes. And the very first question I want to ask you, for those who know you through very different career paths, phases in your life, who is the Richard Coce Hernandez today?
Probably just Richard Hernandez now, really. And it's an interesting story. So I'm kind of like the artist Prince. in that he
Yes.
went through many phases, and he became a symbol at one point. Remember when he was a symbol? Well, the Coce for me was a symbol, and it was a photographic moniker that I hid behind, meaning it was able to be a street photographer at the beginning. Well, actually, I have to lie. The beginning of Instagram, my first 10 pictures were like everybody else, my food, my whatever, because I didn't know what this thing was, and we were just trying to post pictures. But soon became a platform for that kind of photography. And Coce became, it really almost was like a personality. It became something on Instagram, and it took itself somewhere. At the same time, I was in leaving a phase of my career, photojournalism, where I was Richard Hernandez. That's my name. I'm Richard Hernandez, born da da da. And when I got married, I took on my wife's name. So it really is kind of stealing someone else's name. And so
Wow.
her family's from Czechoslovakia. So it used to be Kocheva, now it's Coce. And when we were getting married 33 years ago, I just thought it was crazy that she would have to lose who she was in her name. So I said, I'm going to get your name. We're going to have a tight name. And then the social media, because everything short is better. Coachy at Instagram. So, and then it became a thing. Richard Coachy Hernandez became kind of a signature in my whole. That was more like the artistic. When you say my whole name, to me, it was like you were encompassing my pre-life, which was photojournalism, where I was Richard Hernandez, and then this kind of Richard Coachy Hernandez, which was the educator, kind of artist, and playing around with this Instagram thing. And now all those things are past, and I'm at a point in my life where I'm able to sit back and look through a different lens with photography and approach photography in a completely different way, which I think will be fun to talk about. So I feel like I've just ridden a really grateful creative wave that came my way. I was really lucky. And I have to say, I only think very few people on this podcast and watching this will actually identify with this. And I'm not trying to say it to that there's some kind of specialness to it, but there is an isness to it that I only feel now, which is, when you live and you breathe something that is in your blood that no one can ever take away from you, that is purely for you and is personal. And even if you try and throw it away, it is going to come back. That is what photography is to me now. And it wasn't always that path, but I just know that whatever season it has, I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to try and continue to find, the peace and the magic that it specifically being photography. Cause I mean, photography is great. It's the base of all great art. I love your moniker too. Like it's not only Eyeshot, but it's the 50 millimeter, which is a photographer and everything. It's kind of like, that's the core, that's kind of how I sees. And as a photographer, most of my vision was through a 50 millimeter lens. So I think this core thing is good to talk about. And I think we're coming full circle. So yeah, hard to define, hard to stop from talking. I love talking about all of this stuff. So, please feel free to interrupt. But that's where I am now. I don't educate anymore. I kind of retired from teaching. I was mostly teaching journalism at my last phase of the last few years. But that changed so much. And that is in journalism, I think, across the world. It's very specific, I think, to where you are, but I think it's having, its moments where it needs to change and pivot. And it was a whole new generation that wasn't fully ready to embrace AI. So I felt that because I'm always ready to embrace everything, I don't think you can be informed without knowing what it is you're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
So, I remember early on when Instagram came out, people don't notice there's so much hate, so much hate, so much hate for the platform, for it was just felt like it was antithetical to photography. I got so much. I mean, professionals that were friends for a long time were like, why are you doing this? Why are you promoting this? It's undermining, this, that, and the other. And I was like, I have to. I have to, in order to criticize something or know what it is, I have to paint with the brush first to know whether it stinks
Exactly.
or not, and to have informed conversations. And with anything, those things mature. So we matured through Instagram, and it goes through its phases. And now we have a new thing, AI. And I guarantee you tomorrow it will be something you and I can't even imagine, because 5 years ago, there were no photographers saying things like, oh, guess what? I'm going to go and type in the words, output a black and white photograph with the essence of Cartier-Bresson, shot in the style of Robert Frank from 1950, period, return, and what are you looking at? I mean, to me, talking about arc and where we are, I mean, I'm literally, you can't see these, but those are hairs raising on my arm, because it is so amazing and magical to be in that moment. The same way when I was in the dark room and doing the tray. What is this? Is oh my gosh, I can't believe this light thing.
Same surprise. Yeah.
Same surprise, but look at how we're meeting this one. But it's photography. It is. I mean, and we can get further down, that rabbit hole. But I think my point, and I'll wrap this up here in terms of the arc. But I think it kind of brings it to the present, which is, I started in the dark room. So very traditional shot, 4x5 cameras, 8x10 cameras, big Polaroid camera. I mean, everything you can imagine. And then, moved digital, did all of these things, and, kind of move into this moment. You have to play with AI enough, personally. Nobody's saying play with it and throw it out there and show the world. I mean, I think that's a mistake. But to understand, what it's doing, what its implications are, how it might impact you, and how maybe one day, for whatever reason, you may need to employ it. Maybe not in photography, but maybe in art and maybe in other ways. And to be so unwilling to speak another language, because that's all it is. I mean, it's not human, all
Exactly.
that. But anyway, so that's where I am now. And playing. I'm not playing with it in like a photographic way. Funny enough, I'm in the dark room now. I'm completely back. Like, I'm back to the magic of looking at prints develop again. There's a resurgence, and you know how easy it is. I can get a box of chemicals already now to me. I can get a whole darkroom set, a
Everything.
mini, and create it very quickly. Whereas a few years ago, that wasn't quite the truth, right? It was very hard, and even back in the day, you had to mix your own things, and so I think part of seeing the magic in AI, that it is a magical, truly magical moment, but seeing what it's doing to me as an artist is going, okay, I see it, I understand it. Not for me right now, in my life, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people listening to this that will one day be a kind of AI photographic artist. And there are already people who are doing this, right? Who basically
Absolutely.
just generate images and become a persona, and that's valid, and people will appreciate that and love it and participate in it, and that person might have a great fulfilling career that we can't even imagine in the future world, that's going to bring them joy. So I do find a lot of the pessimism. Well, I think you have to have, with anything, you have to be inquisitive, you have to be questioning, you have to, you know
Try, learn, understand. Absolutely.
Yes, you have to. Otherwise, what's the point? You can't. It feels to me, at least on this side of the fence, there's that, again, when we're talking about visuals and a new tool, artificial intelligence, this immediate resistance that I just hope people who have that, can just loosen up a little bit to it, because I'll tell you what it does. It opens a door uh, to just your brain, just all you think about. Because the role here, right, to me, the whole goal of all of this, the whole goal, it can't be for likes. It can't be to hang something on my wall so that other people see it. It can't be that. Because if it's that for you, then you are not seeing what the deeper meaning and value you're getting out of it. It's really about seeing. It's really about um, it's about those little snaps that you get at the moment you take it, the urge, the boom, that you're never going to relive that. That's it. Do it and let it go. When you hold on to the image and you frame it, and it's got to be here, and people have to like it, and you have to do this, it has this whole other world and life to it, right? And I got sucked into that, and it becomes a community thing, which isn't a bad thing. That's a great thing. But I think that you have to kind of come back to a point of realizing and getting back to your center wherever you are on this journey at some point of like, well, why am I doing this, right? And how is it serving my life? All these kinds of things, and kind of how can I use it for good, good for myself, right? Like photography literally saved my life. I'm kid you not. And I know there are a lot of people out there who could say that the act of picking up a camera and going through the motions kept me off the streets. It kept me out of bad situations. It kept me occupied. It lit this spark. And I think that if you get lost in that world, again, I know it kind of comes off as being negative. It's not. I was there. It's a beautiful world to be in community with photography and have conversation and talk about it and post your images. But when you're a creator in there, and the things that happen to your ego, which do, and if people are saying they're not,
Yeah.
they're lying. Okay, we're
Super
all
liars.
human. You're super liars. You all care, and you all care. But you were honest, and I do mean this when you said, when you like us, you were honest. We care. It matters to us, right? And in different ways, it matters to you. You're trying to build audience and continue this, and there's a level at which that conversation is unhealthy to only be having that conversation.
Yeah.
You can have that conversation, but you can also have your own inner personal conversation with photography. So I jumped out of Instagram and still am not on there actively posting at all. Love it. Love Instagram. I'm on there lurking
Everything.
because I'm in the personal. I'm in the back to the beginning of, wow, you look at like I have pictures that people would just barf. I mean, they're not, but because it's a beautiful blade of grass on my lawn and I saw it and I had this urge to take it and boop, it's there. It's gone. It's like a beautiful moment. Why do we want to hold on to it forever? It's not the way it works, right? And
Exactly.
so I'm just trying to get to that point of letting things go.
Yes, and looking, because this connects to what I wanted to ask you, because looking back at your life and career, it looks like you had different phases, as we have been saying so far. So you had traditional photojournalism, multimedia journalism, mobile photography, and now AI-assisted visual storytelling. Do you see these phases as separate chapters of your life or an evolution of some sorts?
No, it's interesting. They're separate chapters in my life based on photography. My life has followed the path of what the photographic industry did. Really, I mean, I was in film, photojournalism in the darkroom, and then digital came. I was literally in the room, as Steve Jobs. I was there photographing him as a photojournalist when he introduces, the iPhone with, the first one. And, we had digital cameras. And when digital came, I embraced it. Not immediately. In fact, this is a great story. As a photojournalist, we got a car to drive around and take pictures, and we had a trunk full of gear, and it was a really great life. And they said, we're going digital. And I said, I'm not going digital. I'm doing film. They said, no, the whole department's changing. I said, no, we're not. I said, I'm keeping all my film stuff. Every 18 photographers transitioned. I was the last one. They had to bring the security guard out to my trunk to open my trunk and have them take out my film gear. It was kind of it was kind of like just being openly defiant, but these weren't things I immediately embraced, nor did I immediately embrace the iPhone. But so digital comes out and I play with digital, and I did that professionally. I moved into multimedia. I figured out how we could put these photography on the web to create these slideshows. And there was way back when. I still wish these existed. Some people will know what these are. Everybody knows Magnum if you're in a certain world of photography, right? Magnum's the pinnacle, the agency that houses, some of the best in the world. But I was going to make a point about Magnum in that world. I totally forgot my thought. Where was I going with that? What was my thought?
The transitioning digital, analog to digital.
Yeah. Oh, I just was going off on a quick tangent about in that time where we were trying to take photography and put it on the web. In the early days, Magnum had this thing called Magnum in Motion. Oh, where all the photographers would go out and they would take their big long takes from, their vision and put 40 pictures, and they would do their voice, and they would have these, it was beautiful little multimedia experiences that were happening. And some of that, which I think is lost to the internet now, maybe you can see some of those on the Wayback Machine, but just this brilliant moment in time. So I was embracing that moment of time, which was very digital. And then I moved into teaching at that time, teaching people how to do it. I skipped. And then just before teaching people the digital, it became the iPhone. And then I switched. I totally embraced the iPhone and was the first photojournalist to shoot iPhone pictures, video, and take the still grabs and put them in the picture. So I was a photojournalist who was already kind of embracing the iPhone and video way before. So it was just a way, again, this process of seeing a new brush, playing with it. If it's good for me, I'll keep painting with it. And so writing that way. And so, it's just like boom, 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 boom. And now, yeah, here's AI, and I'm in the midst of it because it's a baby. It is so young, right? It's so young. I haven't decided how I'm going to paint with it, personally or professionally, right? I'm looking at what people are doing. I put that prompt that I told you about because I want to see. I prompt all the time. Give me a picture in the style of, people I know, Roy de Carava, Cartier-Bresson, Helen Levitt, and see what it puts out as way of knowledge of what it's doing and how it's seeing things and how it's stealing. And I mean, these are all knowledgeable things. They can enrage you. They can enlighten you. But if you're not talking to it, I don't think you're learning.
At all. Exactly. I want to stay, though, on your first phase, on this photojournalism phase. I want to start from there and then slowly go into every phase. Let's call them like this. And I wanted to ask you, you spent many years inside newspaper journalism. What did the newsroom teach you that you still implement today in the way you look, in the way you see?
That you have to look deep, that you have to go up high, like higher than you think, like go to space. Look at what the astronauts recently did. Furthest people ever out, people. And look at the picture they sent back, right? Again, goosebumps. The picture they sent back was
That's right.
amazing because it was the moon in the foreground and it was the Earth. Now imagine that perspective. Think of your problems from that perspective, okay? Or think of an issue that you're covering as a photographer from that perspective. And then as a journalist, your job is to ideally go all the way until you're looking at my cell, right? And quick tangent, great book, Powers of 10 by the Eames did a great thing where they did that visually, right? And literally you can see that photographically. That's what I brought and continue to bring, is that you need to approach everything with that kind of as time and diligence and microscope and scientific and talking to each side. For example, when I taught photography, it's like if you were gonna photograph this cup, everyone, here you are. Okay, here's your subject, and here's you as a photographer, right? So you go up high, click, 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 right? Okay, no, you got to stand on a chair. Click, click, click. Now the world looks different, right? Then you got to go here. And then you got to go here. Then you got to go, and the light changes as as you move, you move around the subject. So even your subject, you should look and get close. Why are all your pictures, don't get me wrong, why are they just 50 millimeter, right? Now, you don't have to change your lens. You can move your feet. You can still be 50 and move. And that's still the best photography. I like to say this. The best photography is this distance from you. When you're this distance, arm's length almost, and with a 50, it becomes great. So that's what I took. And it's about looking at things, looking at them longer. And as a photographer in photojournalism, you get to lurk in the corner. Because traditionally back then, the reporter was the leader of the group. They would come in and lead the interview. And as a photographer, you got to get back and look and lurk and take pictures and, be in the moment. And so now everything I do comes sprinkled with that. Now in journalism, the deficiency there is you don't often have time because it's a time deadline. And so sometimes, you don't have the time to do what I'm saying is the ideal, right? You got to go out and try and cover a complex issue in one day. Hard, right? But you try to bring that, trying to talk to, this side, that side, here's the basic thing that I brought, if I could encapsulate it in words. And I use this a lot because I think it's word. as a journalist in some sense, even a photojournalist, your job is if someone says it's raining and another person says it isn't raining, your job is to go to the window, look outside, and come back and look at the other person and saying, "You're lying. It's raining." I mean, in some sense, right? So you hear both sides and then you try and verify as much as you can. So, I think no matter what I'm doing, if I'm, now I'm very deep into painting. And it's funny, just on a quick side note, people long in photography, there seems to be a thing that happens to photographers. You get to a point where you either start painting or drawing for some reason, I find, right? In the life cycle of a photographer.
Yeah.
There's always that, and then there's always this creepiness of all your stuff that starts coming around, and then you get like this hermit who's just surrounded by stuff and picking up stuff.
Love
It's
it.
happening, but I think it's examination and it's patience when you can. I mean, the patience came later. The patience came in the next chapter because journalism was fast. I think it was examination, and then I applied that to light. Like if we're going to look at the city government so deeply and what they're doing, right? And I'm going to go out there and do this, that, and the other, and we're going to photograph them and we're going to do all these things. But what if I applied the same intensity to the way you look at light? Because light's a language, but the great thing is light's language is easy. It starts in the same place every day. It moves to the other place. It pretty much has the same intensity. Like, you know, you used to pride yourself in the old days as a photographer because you could read the light in a room. I know right here at 400 ASA, this room is 125 at 5.6, right? Boo, 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 kind of thing. But even that, right? That kind of precision examination that photography itself used to bring, because there was a lot of thinking through it. There was some math, there was some little chemistry, little
Absolutely.
equation. So I really appreciate that and how that grounded me, but it's very constraining when you're an artist inside. I'm not a journalist. I played a journalist on TV, no question. Definitely played a journalist on TV. Loved it. Made a great living at it. Funnest job. I mean, I was presidents, World Series, traveled the world, amazing life. But I was an artist inside. I literally was. I have a colleague who he was the best man at my wedding. He's now a Magnum photographer. And we used to walk the streets together as really
Love
young
it.
photographers. And he looked at me this long time ago, and it was the biggest insult, almost broke up our friendship. And now I see it as the biggest compliment. He looked at me and said, "You know what?" And he was talking about my photography at the time. He goes, "I can see you. You're going to be," he goes, "You're going to be like this old photo collage artist." And I was devastated because here I'm trying to be, Magnum and like all the greats, Abbas, and be, ethical and out in the world. And he's telling me I'm going to be like this collage artist. And, and now in a sense, and he's in Magnum because he's very focused and that's what they do. They focus on one thing and the world needs those people that can do that.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
that person. I
No.
am what he said. I like to embrace everything and put it out in front of you. And I think this is also another thing I learned from photography in that era is that back then, when you shot photographs, anything, you looked at the entire take from beginning frame to end frame with a person next to you, and you talked about each frame. And, and there we go. Why would you do this? Well, okay, good. Oh, I like this. And then I'd be like, why do you like that? I don't like that. I like this one. And so there was an examination of the work that you did in an almost scientific way. And there was a conversation about it. But my point being is you got to see your work as a proof sheet. You got to see the whole shoot out on a grid, the whole thing. Okay, kind of like a camera roll, but a little bigger where you could actually get some sense of it, right? So you would start there and then you would kind of, obviously you would drill down. But I think creatively, no matter what you're doing, whether it's photographic or not, I think a lot of artists would agree and a lot of photographers, the more you can take what you're working on and put it around you and spread everything out, you're going to see connections to things. You're going to grab something here and this is going to go here. And you're going to see connections with your photographs you never saw, two pictures that could live together because one is here and one is here. And so I think it's important thing that I learned from journalism, not only that kind of scientific examination and applying them to light, but also the idea that when you did take a subject that you went out and reported on, you looked at it completely. And a lot of photographers, they shoot and they shoot and they shoot and then they zip through and then they delete and then they pick one and they post it and boom. It's like, there's a lack of a communal part of the journalism, which I really miss. I hate being my own editor. I hated Instagram because I was my own editor, and I think that was part of the downfall of it. You become your own editor. When you're your own editor, then you're that sycophantic AI that's like, oh, this is great and you're great. But there's nobody telling you, Coce, that sucks. That's terrible. It's just another picture of a man in a hat. It looks like the 10th one you did, 5 years ago or whatever, right? But you rely on that inner critic. So anyway, I think a lot of those things really, really stay. And they're also very valuable. That life is gone. That life, the newsroom will never, ever be the way it is. It's going to be brand new. Please, people, it has to be brand new. You have to remake it. I can't do it. I'll help you, but we have to remake it, right? So in that remaking, it'll be, kind of all brand new. But don't forget, as no artist, no human, no researcher, no anybody should forget the people and the lessons that came before you, the history, right? So taking the history of journalism, which in general is always trying to keep the powerful accountable. But basically, I don't know where you are. That's essentially what we're trying to do. That's a good thing. That's a good
Absolutely.
value to hold, right? So while maybe journalism right now is failing and it's crumbling and it needs to be rebuilt, the house needs to be rebuilt. Great. But remember when we rebuild it, that there were some great features of the previous house that maybe we need to bring in so that, things evolve. And I think it's the same way, with photography. But what photography has done in that sense, and I think, you know, speaking from the time of where I was and looking at photography and the things I learned in photojournalism, I think that the completely, opposite, thing now is that I think that, like my life, but also that it follows the photographic chapters, is that this is a chapter that I think really breaks photography into a whole other, like AI. I mean, AI generated imagery. I mean, I'm not into labels and everybody, but I think it's its own thing. And I think it looks and smells like photography. It's a word but it's not. It's a fun other world. But it has other rules and it has other ways you play. And then there is this other world where people are holding on to, the kind of analog ways and doing this and practicing it this way, that I think for the first time in photography, I think you could seriously, there have been books on this, but if I could write one, I think you could make a good case for finally, the nail in the coffin of photography as a general term to encapsulate all these ways of doing things. You can't do that anymore. I think it's destructive because if you start trying to, as we say, humanize the AI or give the AI like characteristics, it's not genuine to the way the way that this new technology might need to react or the way you interact with it. So it's so different that I think even the things that I'm talking about bringing from journalism just aren't relevant in this time and space. And so for me, I think the safest thing to do right now is to see and understand that there is this core of, street photography and practicing and foundational and, what I'm calling like traditional photography, or whatever label you want to give it, that practice in a certain way, whether it's with a digital camera that does X, Y, and Z or an analog camera, but it's produced this way that we've been doing, since before AI. And that for us we were even talking about that as being like well, what is this? Is it real photography unless it's, right? And I think it wasn't pure. It still was a thing. You still could call it photography. It was still playing in the same arena, the same ballpark, right? It was like baseball. This is what you say. Now we're on the moon. You cannot play baseball on the moon. The rules are different. There's no gravity.
Completely different, exactly. And one thing that always struck me about photojournalism, and I want to have your take on this actually, is that photojournalism in a way trained us to believe that the images as evidence, right? But after all these years of working in street photography, photojournalism, multimedia, everything we said so far, what do you think is the relationship of photography with truth, with the truth?
Well, it's okay. So just go back real quick. It's always had a very complicated relationship with the truth. I mean, you go back to Abraham Lincoln. That's not his body on his head. I mean, we can. There's a million. I have good long classes about this. But you're absolutely right that we got because it became almost courtroom like evidence. I mean, literally.
Exactly.
And so there's no question that photography culturally ingrained itself in our minds that what we were seeing was a representation of the truth. Most people were trying to define that as the pure definition of the truth. But the reality was it's just a window on the truth, right? Truth is something that unfolds over time. What we think today that, oh, somebody did this tomorrow. No, that's not what unfolded. And so I think that, yes, we have been trained, and now we have to untrain. We literally have to untrain ourselves because the world is communicating in a whole new way. Culture has taken photography. Young people use it in a completely different way to communicate. The world uses it. My own government uses it in a weird way to communicate. So it's part of the culture. And so what we need to do, right, understanding that is that as a culture, so let's forget photography and journalism because this is the most important thing, is that unfortunately we have to do more work. Right, you have to almost now become your own journalist, and when you see something, it's not, you can't immediately go, well, there's got to be some truth to it. No, 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 no. Now the assumption needs to be no truth. Now don't get me wrong, and I don't remember the name, but there was a couple of recent magnum level photographers, really high journalists who did some crazy AI things, and they went out there and they did these, and then they told you later, right? And so I think that so you're looking at those images. I remember seeing the images from that photographer. My immediate instinct before I knew was that, holy crap, these are real. It came stamped with, photographer X's, signature. They were shot by X photographer who I trust, who I've seen. And then they said, no, it wasn't me. I did. Now I get their point. I love the artistic thing they did, but it also slapped me in the face like a big wet fish, like boom,
Exactly.
what? We can't assume that anymore. And look at, how easy it was for a professional to, kind of manipulate this. So it's a societal thing that we're going to have to redefine. So that's going to take a lot of people talking about it and thinking about it. And then I think what it means is as just a person in community trying to live a civic life and do the right thing and vote and do all these things and make a better society is that, we have to understand that we have to do a lot of work now. So when you're there doom scrolling and you're looking at stuff and you're even, on Instagram and you're inspired by something or you see a picture, your first instinct cannot be to reshare or to tell the world about it yet. Really, it should be, how do I know this is true? First, where's the source? I mean, basic stuff like where's the source? Is this, uh, you know, news at you.com, or is it, don't get me wrong, people will scream at this, is it New York Times or The Guardian or BBC? Those are, I know they're all old guard ones, but they come with a level of something. And so sourcing it, it really has flipped the world. It's a huge change. I think it's bigger than the iPhone, than digital, and so I think it's going to take a huge change from us to embrace it, not see it like it was, to understand it's a new thing, to understand also that as creators, man, we have more responsibility. You can't just, and for me, you can't just fool around because you're going to be, I mean,
Exactly.
right? You could
Gonna
mess
have an
with stuff
impact. Yeah.
in a way you may, oh, I was just joking. Well, somebody saw that and did this because of that, because of what the question you just asked, right? Because photography set a standard for society with a level of truth that is wiped off the table, literally wiped off the table now. So there's no, there's no way from coming back from that. So we have to reset ourselves, right? We're in a reset moment, but a reset moment is great. A reset moment is for a whole new generation of visual journalists to come out and define things. There are young photographers who can come out and say, this is how photojournalism should be now in 2027 and 2028. This is how we practice it. This is how we let you know that we verify it and how we show our standards. And, and then, we're going to have to say, as a community, as a artistic culture that this is where, AI will live. Right. Like museums are doing that already. Right. They're the
Exactly.
ultimate gatekeepers. Like, well, and Hollywood, look at what did Hollywood do immediately? No AI, anything AI. No, 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 no. Oscar AI. No, calm down, slow your roll. Like, wait a minute. One, because it hasn't been, I don't think we've had enough time to fully. I mean, we know it's bad. We know what it's, but it's there, AI. I mean, it trained on all the photographers in the world. It trained on all books. Let's not deny. I mean, they stole everything, but I mean, you can't put the genie out of the bag. And I know it sounds a little defeatist, like, well, but it is. That's the reality. Let's be real, right? It's out there and it's done that thing. So let's put it in its box in some sense, what I'm trying to say. And it's a separate box than the photography box. And I wouldn't call it photography. And I would try and separate, eventually as culture kind of matures, separate the conversation so that culturally people will understand AI generated imagery. I'm in this world and this world. And if we're smart and we can try and keep a line, which sounds very difficult to hold, right? Like the whole Game of Thrones wall, whatever, like winter is coming kind of thing. But I think what we have to do on the photography traditional side, not the AI side, which is exciting and people need to go over there and play and have that become its thing, is hold a line and hold a, not like in a bad way, but like, this is the way we practice it. This is, what we believe. This is photography, shot this way, done this way, unfiltered or, whatever. I mean, there's lots of definitions. And I think we still need to do that in some way. I mean, I think even what, you all do with your tone and your style and how you all approach things, you're in a particular world, and you're playing with particular artists and you all play by particular rules. Look at your catalog, look at who, I mean, and it's very
Yes.
clear, very clear. And that's what I mean by holding the line. We need to keep your cultural institution that is Eyeshot and all the other ones in other countries and other places that are working, intact and vibrant and alive, so that separation, that is, it's very true, kind of stays. That we're not blurring it. I don't want to blur it. I don't want it to be too.
Yes. You've been like, I feel like you've been such a, pass me the term, I don't know if this is the correct term, but like kind of like a trendsetter on couple of different things, in the sense of, like, for instance, with the mobile photography, you were one of the first ones to actually take it seriously, whereas everybody else, as we were saying before, was very much scared or felt threatened in some ways. And I wanted to ask you, what did the iPhone phone allow you to do at that time that you felt that the digital camera, analog camera, couldn't do? What did you feel like? What was it?
It was easy. Again, culture drove it. So I'm going to give you a big secret. So I'll tell you what it was. It was immediacy. At the time, the internet was just coming out. News was, everybody wanted, you had to get it fast, get it on the web, get it on the web, And so TV has satellite trucks. You can project live. Back then we had digital, we had a laptop. So here's a common scenario. Huge downtown emergency. Go down there, cover it. I'm a photojournalist. Boom, boom, boom. I got 10 pictures. We got to get them into the paper. We got to get them on the web. You know what I had to do? Greatest technological time. Take my card, put it in my old laptop, connect this old Wi-Fi thing that connected here. We had that, but I had to caption it. I had to do this. I had to do that. It took me time. Guess what? I started doing from my phone. I clicked, I attached it to an email, I captioned it to my editor, and I said, boom, put it on the web. It looked like crap because it was low res, but the web was tiny. They ran them this quick. And so all of a sudden, I was this hot shot. They're like, look at Richard, like, wow, go, 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 right? And then, so it wasn't about trying to keep some artistic standard. It was about testing its immediacy. It was the greatest tool I could have in my arsenal to get stuff. It made my life easier, much less stress. And here's the secret. I want to get back to what I was going to say. The secret and what you're saying at the cutting edge. It's very, and feeling like, I was at these places or I was at the leading edge, or no, I wasn't. I'll tell you, all I did. It's very easy, and people are just afraid to do it. It's how it works. I've all these times you mentioned it. That's how many times I've done exactly this. When something new comes out, same cycle. There's going to be, I don't care what it is, bunch of people are going to be against it and a bunch of people are going to be for it. So the first thing you need to decide, honestly, is which side you're going to be on. So what I do when I immediately, so first I'm very, like, I know all the latest photo trends. I know all the latest, I keep myself informed as a good journalist does, and that's very easy to do now. You can use AI in a good way and say, hey, AI, give me a photographic briefing on all the latest trends in photography. I'll trust it to do that. It's going to get close, right? But so keeping an eye on that, so I knew that instinctually, because other people were talking about an industry that the iPhone was going to immediatize all this stuff and change things. I wasn't the first one to think at that time that, the iPhone could change journalism, but I grabbed the idea because I was on the side of this technology. I'm on the plus side. So I'm going to grab it. And now I'm going to use it real quick in the wild to do a test run or how does it work? Works good. I'm going to keep doing it. Guess what? I've done it 3 or 4 times. That's 3 or 4 more times than everybody else behind me. So the truth is, yes, I'm a little bit more ahead, and most people are, but I'm not an expert. But you'll treat me like one because I know a little bit more than you do. And I think there is an expertise to that. Obviously, a little bit more knowledge, avails us of a little bit more. It doesn't always, mean a truth or wisdom. But I think that what happens in that space when you know that, you just keep practicing it, then you have to put yourself out there just a little bit so that people will recognize what you're doing. For example, when I first got on Instagram, I got about, listen to this, so funny, great history of Instagram. I got 17,000 followers. Gasp. And the New York Times wrote a article about me because I was an influencer, and they're like, we've never seen this kind of growth in Instagram, and he's got 17,000 followers and this unique voice. And all I was doing, all I was doing is exactly what I told you. I wasn't like out there intentionally. I was just practicing a tool, doing it over and over again. And then I happened to show a person, somebody saw a thing, and they're like, wow, what's going on? And New York Times called me, what's going on? And then all of a sudden that takes everything, right? But you know what most people do? Oh, I'm not an expert. I don't, no, no, no. I'm like, you guys know, embrace it. If you are truly learning something and you know that you know a little bit more than someone else and it's emerging, it's brand new, then you are an expert in your, I was an expert in my field at the time. There were maybe a handful of other journalists across the country. We were all doing the same thing at the same time. Same thing with AI. I tell my students, listen, you think AI is good or bad? Take a stand. Bad? Okay, go over there, go on your land, do whatever you do. I think it's good, has good potential. I'm going to stand over here. Okay, now play with it. Put it in action. Do this. When you're ready and you've produced something that you feel is public worthy, start putting it out there, right? Start putting it out there. Then people will see you. They'll see it. And hopefully, if you're doing the right thing, people in your industry will recognize it. Somebody will ask you to do a podcast or ask you to do an interview or talk to you about it. Any person, is like, hey, what you're doing here? Happens all the time. And then you get labeled something and you keep riding the wave, and you don't let your ego tell you that you're not an expert. Just keep writing it, keep practicing it. You're not an expert in the sense you're not a Jedi master, but you can wield your lightsaber and cut down a few people. You know what you're doing, and you've held your lightsaber and trained with it, 50 more weeks than people behind you. So I'm, kind of thing. I'm trying to not make it too big of a thing, but also, I think that becomes, kind of a super important thing to embrace, because I have friends now that are doing things with AI. They're literally AI and in photography, and they're playing around. They're doing exactly what I say, and then they start putting things out there, just like I said. And all of a sudden, because they're putting things out there in their industry where there are very few people doing it, like there are very few photojournalists posting their photojournalism that they shot with whatever on Instagram, but there was some of us. So you catch a wave, ride the wave, and then when you're on it, don't be afraid to call yourself, a proficient surfer, not a pro surfer, but are you riding the wave? Yes, ride it. Don't jump off, or don't let. Anyway, I think a lot of it has not been any kind of, premonition or doing anything other than, I think, which is important, taking that. You got to lean one way or another with a new tool, right? You got to decide whether it's for you or not. Like, I mean, it's the best
And how to
analogy
use
ever.
it.
Like, come on, that's all it is. It's just AI. This is AI. Okay. Ugh. Well, how do you know that this isn't going to change your world? Well, you got to, throw it away, right? That's it. Another one's going to come. This one is the one that's all of you watching this 10 years, 15 years from now. This is the one we don't know. Okay. It's going to come. It's going to come. It's going to be in front of you. What are you going to do? Are you going to take it and paint with it? Or are you going to go, nah, not for me? That's okay. It's okay. That's actually probably the most Buddhist thing and meditative thing you could do, right? Is to see something and go, not for me. Great, good. I'm not judging it, believe me, because I know the value of doing the wrong thing. And so many friends and colleagues have come to me and looked me in the eye, literally, who now for photo friends and stuff. I'm not kidding. Last few days, I had one tell me, man, I wish I had not like listened to you, but I wish I had embraced the stuff along when you were doing. These were colleagues I was working with at the time that, 20, 30 years
Yeah.
later, I'm reconnecting with. And they really do say, I wish I wasn't so resistant to all of the change. These people were like 70 now, right? Photographers, and they were really resistant and super resistant. They never tried it. They never, that's what I'm trying to say. They never used the brush. It's not that they used it and said, I hate it. That's what I want you to do. But they never used the brush. And then they're in this position, they're, God, gosh, Coach, I wish I had used the brush. I really do. And then they might be using it now, but
Not that it's not too, it's late, but it's still time for this. And another thing I wanted to ask you is that because with the mobile photography, do you think that made photography more democratic in the sense that everybody can do photography now, or photojournalism, or did it make photography too easy?
it did all of those things. Listen, I'll tell you how angry I got when Apple started running these ads in the United States with their iPhone that said something like, no photographer needed, and it was like they were advertising their photo phone, like they're like, hey, you don't need to be a photographer, you just press the button. And I'm this, yes, oh my God. And so, but at the time, photographers are going, oh, this is the worst thing. They're going to democratize it. Everybody's a photographer now. And I go, yeah, guess what? Everybody has a guitar. Not everybody's Jimi Hendrix. So be quiet, you know, do what you do, and just, don't let that stop you, because democratization of anything, if you're a really good artist, is the best thing. You know why? If I'm
Because you will
here and I'm
stand
shooting,
out.
it pushes me forward, because here comes everybody and everybody can do what I do now. Shit, now I got to learn a new tune. Now I got to do a new trick. Now I got to go way in the outlands and the other lands and look for some new stuff. That's exciting. That's what democratization, and I tell you, that's what it did to every wave. When everybody came with their iPhone and my grandma and everybody was snapping, I'm like, damn, that looks good. I was honest. I wasn't like, I'm like, that looks good, grandma. I'm like, I got to go somewhere else. Well, this is, they can do it now. They can do it. So I got to push
Everybody.
myself.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't stop and moan and complain and, think about it too much. And it's a great thing. My daughter, she's 27, communicates with photography. She's not a photographer, but she does things with photography that are amazing. Right. And in a democratized way, it takes this, communicates with people. That's not photography. I mean, it's a form of communication. There's visual communication, which I think that photography takes. That's what it is. I think I'd like to, even though I think I preach this whole time not to put labels on things, I'd like to think that we could hold the word, because things are so out of balance, that we could potentially hold the word photography as the oldest traditional practice that we started with from 18 whatever to about, the time AI came out. We, kind of call that traditional photography.
Yeah.
I think that, that is kind of super. I mean, kind of, it's just very, very important, I think, to kind of understand and think about that, right? And kind of try not to. People like to make this big soup and put everything together and make it all conversation. I think we need to separate things a little bit and go, that this didn't taste so good in the soup, and we want to put this over here, and let this boil a little bit more, which is the AI. And I don't know. I think we need to be a little bit precious with the um, holding what we want from this phase of photography. as it moves into something else because of the democratization, because it's moving so fast. And when you democratize something, then the industry has to go faster and faster and faster to keep up. Man, look out, the cameras are this and they're that, and you can do this, and now it's got AI. And at some point, guess what? Photographers, guess what the next podcast you're going to have if you haven't already? When is a digital camera so AI that it's not photography, right? That, and the camera's almost like that, right? Like it shoots it, but by the time you see it, it's been so, it's got AI in it. It maybe cleaned up some stuff, which it's already, and so you get this pristine, beautiful, maybe they do it now. You see where they'll clean up images, people who aren't smiling. I mean, to me, now that crossed our line of reality. We took our truth of imagery that we
Exactly.
set, right? That, well, gosh, they weren't smiling. All five of them weren't smiling, but this AI did that. So I think that next phase will kind of push us to think further about how we keep it separate because of the democratization. It's always good. It's always good to have everybody use a tool, because then you get the 8-year-old who goes, and all of a sudden our problems are solved. I'm not kidding. The potential for AI to solve our problems is just as high as it is for it to doom us all in some sense. I mean, I think we don't talk about that enough. And so democratizing a tool so that someone behind me on the path or ahead of me or whatever can use it, in a potentially impactful way that changes the world is what I want. I don't want to hold on to something precious just for a small group of niche people.
Yes, absolutely so. And I wanted to, because we're diving quite a lot in the AI field, and I want to keep going on this. In fact, the next question I have for you, what does then authorship mean when an image is no longer only taken, but it's shaped, it's prompted and directed? Where do you see the authorship?
We are the authors. We, it's true. At that point, it's a we. And even as an author, if you use it, if I were to use something, as you said, I would not claim, I would say this is a we, because I use something that was trained on all the people before me, the we's, right? It is. And I
It's
took it
true.
and I manipulated it and I made it something else. So I put me in it now. So now it's got all these other people mediated by AI with some me, and then I turn something out. It's a we. That's really what it is. Okay. Now, authorship and ownership in the future becomes um, me, print, physical. Now what? That's authorship. That's ownership. What you guys are doing when you're printing, when you're publishing. And here's what I think, where the whole conversation comes back to the center. It's back to printing things out. It's back to a physical object. That's how you have ownership as an author in photography. Is, you have people you go the old way, kind of like people recognize your work, the art, your signature. This was done by me, authenticity, right? And I think we'll connect like that with humans. We'll want to know, the photographers that we admire. We want to be able to, see them and see their work. And young people will appreciate more, having something or seeing something or going somewhere to see it. I think there may be a resurgence in galleries and communal spaces to see authorship art, real art that came. So I think it's a ways away, and I'm projecting, but I think it's going to happen. So I think the general digital authorship is lost because you can't prove, somebody could say, I did this, but they used AI. Well, the real authorship again is the we. And I think like it goes back to the monkey thing, right? Remember the whole thing, who took the photograph, the monkey that clicked? Well, it really was the we, because if the photographer hadn't put the camera there, then the monkey couldn't have taken the picture. The authorship it really is co-authorship in some sense, right? In order to get that photograph, both parties needed to be present with, and I think that there's the same way with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is the we. It's a beautiful thing when you think about it. Don't get me wrong. In a weird way, you're going, holy crap, that digital thing is the mind of everything we've written and I can talk to it. Okay, kind of cool in a certain way. If you build off of it, and it's kind of sad in a certain way because it copyrights it, but I'm sorry, we can't expect to participate in a world so openly abundant in internet and expect complete copyright ownership. That was the old world, people. That's the way it worked in film and TV and radio when it was vinyl and print and film. But we expected it to work in the same way, and it didn't, because all the rules were different. We're trying to play, football, baseball, tennis on the moon. And so I think, wrong move. So now we've got all this kind of, confusion in it. So I think it's really, kind of recognizing that aspect of it is kind of, I think it's super, super important to have that kind of.
And I want to ask you something a little bit provocative in a way. So, is then AI a threat to photographic truth or a threat to a photographer's self image?
Both. It's a huge. There's no question that, I mean, it is. Watch the movie Arrival. Watch any alien. It's an alien species in some sense. It's unfamiliar. We don't know what this is. So yes, it's yes, you have to perceive it as a threat. And yes, it's actually, don't get me wrong, it's almost created out of a negative, right? It stole stuff. It did stuff they weren't supposed to do, right? So you have to, realize you're kind of, operating, from that angle of it. So yeah, there's no question. I mean, I cannot deny that, what it does and how you can use it, because, and I cannot deny it because I've done it. I've thought of so. Listen, I'm a journalist. Do you think of how many ways I have thought of how I could fake people out, what I could do, the limits of it, trying to make sure this looks like I know what a real picture looks like. I've looked at images for 56 years. I pass all those stupid, is it AI? I know the test. I know, you know, kind of what's real and the constraints around it. And, I'm lucky I have that, but most people don't, you know, have that. So I know when I say that it has the potential to ruin careers, lives, change them, a lot for the worse. Because when you think about, even if you can find an ethical way to do it on your terms, it's already been undermined. The basic foundation of what you're using, is stealing and kind of doing something gross and unethical, and like, something that doesn't uh, align with values. So yes, but okay, it's here. Is it going back in the bottle? Is it going to stop? I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. It's here. It's being adopted on, and I lurk in other really serious Reddit forums where all the creatives are and people, and I know certain people who work in Hollywood and all these industries that are saying, we're not AI, we're not doing, and it. And everybody's playing with it, and they're just being very quiet about it because they know they're gonna have to use it. They know it's gonna be part of Hollywood. They know that this is coming, right? And so I think there's, you know, um, that where you're gonna have to deal, with that. It's the exact same thing that parents have to deal with iPads. Come on. Like, I had to deal with my daughter and a Barbie here in the United States. Are you going to give them it's the same kind of, thing, I think, when you think about it in that context. So but so it's here. So how are you going to shield your daughter from, how long could I shield my daughter from Barbies? Not long. How long are you going to shield your kid from an iPad? Try. Go as long as you can. Hey, if you can get till the person's 18, good for you. But guess what they're going to do on their 19th birthday? They're going to go get an iPad.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm
Exactly.
simplifying it, but I think,
But it's
it's a
clear.
spark. Yeah. And so pick a side is what I'm saying. It's clear right now. And don't be afraid to change sides and make a U-turn as the technology matures, as its truth changes. And its truth will change. Okay, so what happens if all of a sudden AI changes its ways so much that, it actually gets better, and any photo, generated from it has some way to distinguish. I mean, there could be, who knows, some kind of uh, that's what I'm trying to say, is that's the one thing I learned. I was at the heart of Silicon Valley. I was in Silicon Valley when all of this stuff was born. I was in a room where they created the first web browser called Netscape. Well before, I was the very first web browser, right? It's like Mosaic, all these kinds of things in there. Meaning, I've seen so much change, and I've seen through just time and the patterns, they kind of come and they kind of go, and some things stay, fairly constant, which is there is always going to be something that we can't predict that's going to make a major change in your life artistically. Your tools will change drastically. The way you disseminate your message will change drastically, right? Delivery platform. I mean, what happens when all images are only here and everybody's looking mostly at them here? What does that mean for photography? That changes everything. How my picture going to look here when most people are going and they're doing this, or it's something else? It's what I'm trying to say is we don't know what it is. So when it comes, paint with it, and then pick a side. I'm going to use it right now or not. If you don't, put it aside. But if you see other people using it the way you want to use it, pick it up again. And so it's not but if you do the side of go and play with it, then play with it responsibly. Don't be all Listen, everything we create does not need to go out into the world. There was a thing I also learned from journalism. It's called editing. It's a thing you all do with books. Okay. A photographer comes to you with thousands of images. And what do? The book is a precious thing because you edit it, you take time. And, there's a lot of mistakes that we make as photographers. There's a lot of things that you shouldn't put out there because they're not baked yet. They're not done. The bread isn't done. Right. So if you choose the side of painting with it, paint with it. Don't let anybody see your paintings yet. Think about them. Look about them. How is this going to look for you? Is this how you want to represent yourself? Is this helping you? And if it does, you're going to be honest with your audience. Hey, look, I'm learning this new phase of photography. Go, go, go. But don't let the cat out of the bag until you understand what the repercussions might be when people find out that you're using that tool. That's the other thing I learned about journalism. Be transparent. Just be transparent, right? Like sometimes people would always, man, some of my pictures, even I'm like, I don't even know how I did that. I don't know who shot that. I don't even being in the moment. They're so perfect, so perfect. They're like, it has to be set up, has to be, you did this. And I'm like, I'm very honest, no. But every now and then I do fun tricks that I used to not tell anybody about. This is a fun one. People will love it. It's a great trick. Other people do it, but you take one of your own photographs, just like you have behind you, you print it, you frame it, and then you walk, you walk around the house with it and a camera, and you wait until the right thing is reflecting in the right spot in your picture. And then you shoot a picture of your picture with a reflection of the glass. Now, watch this. What if I did that with another one of my pictures behind me? This is what I used to do. I love photography, right? So here's my camera. Here's my camera. I'm all like, oh, and here's my picture, and there's my picture behind me. And I'm like, boom, boom, boom. And I shoot a picture and I post it. I'm the kind of person like, if don't make me explain it and I did this, I did. It's all about, do you like it? Do you react to it? Good. That's all photography is to me. It's a conveying of an emotion. Now, talking about transparency, if you come to me, which people did in many pictures like that, like, oh my gosh, that's set up. How did you did a manipulation and double? And I'm like, okay, first of all, no. First of all, I did this and I did this, and it looks like that. But again, playing with tools, playing around with things, just like the photographer that pulled that trick on us, right? But was eventually transparent. I think that transparency, no matter how you do it, has to be part of the process, because that's when you lose people. And that was actually a phase for me that I had to switch from, and I'm still doing it, switch from photojournalist to visual journalist, because I'm not a photojournalist. And would never, I practiced photojournalism, a long time ago for a certain period, because it has certain rules and certain definitions. I don't practice those anymore. I don't get paid by, I'm an educator. And now as a visual person, I'm that person my friend said I would be, that I thought would, I will take one. And I'm in the phase now where I went out into the world and I gathered all my hat men. I gathered all my material. I've got all my photos. And now it is at the point where I do want to sit down with those and I want to cut them up and I want to paste them. And maybe I want to paint them, or maybe I want to paint over them, or maybe I want to, and listen to this. So now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what if I could take all my hat men and do something like, not AI, making it AI, but use AI coding to make some bananas cool, interactive, right? Because here's the other thing that we don't think about AI as photographer. Use AI to show off your work. Use it as you know, you can do to code. Do you know the kind of visual presentations you could make and you don't know how to code? That's brilliant. Like you could sit there, and I've done this. So I'm going, hey, create an interactive website where my images float past the user as they scroll forward. It took me years to learn how to do that and code that. And I used to do that. And now it's like, to me, there's no, I mean, coding is coding is coding, you know?
Yes.
And maybe some coders will be mad that that code is built on the code, but I get it. But it's like, so one, look at what I did. Now I know I played with AI. It doesn't just need to be used for photography. I could actually use it to enhance my photography in another way, right? And so like that's for me like a, you know, a great example of how I might use it now and in the world. But and I notice I don't share anything. I've got paintings, all the stuff I've talked about I've been doing, but I'm doing exactly as I practice. I'm baking in my own kitchen, people. You're not tasting anything yet. Like let me get my act together and understand what's important for me to put out, why I'm putting it out, and you know how I'm going to defend it or stand by it or say this is what I'm doing, because that's part of the community, right? When you put things out there, you have to talk about them. You know, you put them out there just for the likes and the that's not what we're talking about.
To get something straight, I feel like every, let's call, major shift in your career has kind of, in a way, always been connected to a new tool somehow. But do tools simply change how we work, or do they change what we're able to see? Not the way we see, but what we're able to notice. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes 100% sense, and it's the easiest thing to answer. More tools are better. Ask our ancestors. Was it one tool that, or more tools are better? You know why?
Yes, you're
Because
right.
look, seriously, it's stupid. This is a tool. You know what it is?
Yes.
It's a stamp, okay? But now let me take a picture of that and let me more tool. Let me more. Like I like layers anyway. There was this thing I used to do with my photography. Another thing, Instagram people were like, how does this look like film? It's not a filter. There's something about it. Because you know what I would do?
This
More
grain.
tools. No, I would do the grain. I do everything on my phone. And then I print it out on a on a on a piece of paper. And then I just rephotograph it with my phone. Now it is a print, and I'm shooting the print. It's got the real paper texture. It's got, and so now new
Everything.
tool, printer, and then it looks. People can't get that. They're like, "What filter is that?" It's not a filter. I printed it out on a printer, then I rephotographed. And sometimes what I would do, I would take it out, I would rephotograph it, and then like write on it, and then rephotograph that, and and then put that in an app, and then output it from Hipstamatic, photograph it, and then bring it back into my phone and put it through another app, print it out. And so it's like a layer. I love this, like layer upon layer. So for me, tool upon tool upon tool, I want to have, why wouldn't any artist not want to have access to all the paints and brushes in the world that are, when to me, novelty is fantastic, right? New, oh my gosh, let me play with this. So it's kind of being a kid and toys. I mean, when I was young, toys were kind of, they were, they weren't abundant. They were in a certain abundant way. My mom worked very hard, but when we got them, they were like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing. So it's kind of like, who wouldn't want to be a kid in this day and age? And in this day and age, you can do so many things. You have so much power, people. Like, you can have an idea, even to change. Let's go back to my roots. Let's go back to photojournalism, right? Because this is the core. You can have an idea and tell a story and go out and take 5 to 10 pictures of a community, of something, of anything. And everybody had the power to do that. We could all go out and take pictures. Okay. But now that was democratized, in the 50s, everybody had a Kodak. Well, now, not only that, what's democratized? You don't need a newspaper. You don't need the New York Times to make an impact. I do not need the New York Times. I had on Instagram, the other story they wrote about, that I had more followers on Instagram than the newspaper I was working for had subscribers. right? So the opportunity to take what you create and impact globally is unprecedented. And then on top of that, your potential to make money off it's there. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but your potential to make money or find new avenues. Now you sprinkle in, if you're on the side of accepting right now and playing with AI, wow, I could ask it ideas. I could help it with build a business. I could help it build my photography. I could help it build a web. Like, why not use it? I have hundreds of thousands of photographs. I could use AI and create a small piece of software that will go through all of my images, and I can say, I want you to do this, tag this, do this, change this on this, and tag everything with this, and it'll right. So you're on that side. Play with it, embrace it. Kind of use it, find the right ways. To do it. I think it kind of becomes a kind of a self-fulfilling kind of like formula, I think, for just being able to play. I mean, to me, photography is just it's fun. It's fun. And I don't mean this in a like to belittle moments, but I shared some amazingly tragic, I had to be with people and see things and witness things that, but in retrospect and even in the time, there were just like these moments that um I think that we all get from shooting, from creating, that are just kind of back to the essence of that magic and being. And what I wanted to say, is afraid to say, is almost playful. It wasn't fun, but there's an energy you get from being in life and right in life as things are happening. And to me, and that's what I mean by fun and play. Like, who said it? Like, if your pictures aren't good enough, then, well, no, if pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. But that's a different one. A good one, though. And obviously, he meant not close enough part wise, not physically. Or he could have meant either one, but they're both great.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I want to ask you something actually that you actually told me before we started the conversation. And it relates to the fact that you belong to a generation that experienced photography before and after social media, after platforms and everything. What do you think young photographers lose by beginning inside this kind of platform, or nothing, of course, like Instagram, TikTok, or anything like that? Do you think they lose something or not? And in case, what?
See, I approach it from, I would say, what do they gain by it? What do they gain by it when they move to analog photography? And that's my point. If you're going to be a young photographer, if you're going to be a doctor, are you not going to, if you're a doctor, are you not going to study and understand Madame Curie? Are you not going to look where penicillin came from? Are you not? Of course you are. So as a photographer, if you really want to be a photographer and make imagery, you have to study all forms of it and practice. Okay, if you want to be a heart surgeon, you can't just not practice heart surgery. You got to. So if you want to be a photographer, yes, photography lives on Instagram. Photography is practiced by people who only shoot on a phone or digital device and share it only on a platform. And you can do that for 20 years and master it and come up with new ways to do this, that, and the other with it, right? Great. I will tell you the advice at some point, please stop and take some time. Not as some weird, people like to make it some like mythical, you got to shoot film, like, climbing Mount Everest or you're not no, 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 go have fun. Just see what it's like, please. Just get some Dektol and some Kodak, put a roll of film in there, understand it, to get an old camera. Look how hard it was doesn't mean you have to use it as a tool, but dip your toes, swim in all the pools. That's how you advance. I mean, if you don't do that, and then you become a niche, and that person could be really good. They can make $1 million only being, just an Instagram photographer and doing all this kind of stuff and never participating in this way. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. They can, same way a young person could, and I know a few of them they're like 13 or 14 and they're in a dark room. Literally, they're like, oh, I'm at school and we're doing the dark, my camera. Will you, I'm going, oh my gosh, you're a cam, I'm getting all excited. But
Yeah.
there are people that are starting there, even right now. I would tell them, oh, I wouldn't say stay there. I'd be like, you have to go. And obviously, you can't be anti Instagram. And I know some people who are young people now who are trying to buck that trend. I'm like, it sounds good right now, but It's not going anywhere. Social photography, that's what it is. Instagram will die in 10 years. It'll be some other, Insta something, we'll be onto something else. But visual communication isn't going to die, transmitted digitally to people via communication, non-print. So you might as well practice that as well. And so I'm telling you, paint with all the brushes. That's what I tell a photographer. There's a lot of brushes to paint with. So if you're painting with one, pick up another one, paint with that one. If you're only painting with one brush, then you're only painting with one brush. That's going to get boring after a while.
And in all of this, then, what do you think is the role of a photographer today?
At first, you have to define what kind of photographer you want to be. I mean, are you talking about an advertising photographer? Completely different conversation, right? Because advertising photography did used to be based in old traditional photography, and you shot the cologne. And now, do you really need that shit? We could do that in AI, and you could be an AI photographer in advertising. Okay, okay. What kind of photography are you talking about? Are you talking about somebody who works for a newspaper, a news gathering? That's a completely different kind of, and to me, I think that's really kind of an important kind of distinction, because there's just so many varying ways that there are to slice this, right? And I think we get too narrow sometimes about how, we want things to come out. And I just think we have to think, again, going back to that thing of perspective. We're looking at things on Earth, and we're too close to it. We got to go to the Artemis level for a moment and go further back, right? Pull back again, go back to the journalism thing, right? Just pull back a little bit and question and slow down a little bit and have the conversations we're having, because people need to disagree with me, and we need to have these conversations, and I need to hear, differing and altering opinions and experiences, right? To inform me and to move us all together. Because just like the copyright thing, it is a we thing now. It's not, it's all gone. It is we, us together now, right? In everything, I think. Look at economically, globally. We all suffer no matter what. It didn't used to always be that way. I mean, obviously it was always global, but it is much more ripples we have on each other, now in different ways. So I think it's about just we have to be more thoughtful about it. I mean, we've been thoughtful about photography, but everybody's embracing it. Everybody's embracing it in many different ways. But I think if we kind of come back to the arena we're in and that you're in, and that I think your audience is in, at least now, by the tradition that you're setting with the beautiful work that you showcase it, and the way that you showcase it, to me, that's authorship, that's ownership, that's value. And I think, it's important for people to kind of just hold on to and think about more deeply the implications and where we're going. And then there needs to be some leaders, cultural, photographic leaders, and I don't know the whole photographic world, but that need to be talking about it. And then there needs to be a group of people who are skunk working the next iteration. Just like way back, remember the old photographic societies, the F-16 society, they literally would form and kind of come. And I think something like that, kind of needs to happen. And I think it's happening in small corners. You guys do great work in kind of spreading the message and talking about different things. But, I think if we don't do that, kind of come together as a photographic community, whether we're or whatever, and then decide kind of like, how we're going to navigate. Because we can't navigate as a photography community. It's just too bifurcated now. It's too tough. It's like trying to have a world government. That's not going to work.
No, never, never.
No. So, find, the photojournalists are not, nor should they ever embrace AI in any way, shape, or form, right? I mean, it's not yet, unless, like I said, unless it can reinvent itself, or that somebody can invent a way where, these things can coexist, somehow the ethical use of, or the distinction between photojournalism or whatever. But some things should never mix, like like using the painting analogy, whatever. If you mix too many, you're just going to get gray.
And it's
There
gonna
has to
see
be
nothing.
some,
Yes.
yeah, there has to be some structure to, it can't be too. So I think, now more than ever, because of the democratization, because of AI changes the game so much. Listen, Instagram didn't change the game that much. It just made the conversation different. Really didn't change photography that much. I mean, I remember I took the migrant mother picture, the Dorothea Lange, out here in the United States, like iconic. It's like the Virgin Mary, like, right? And so I took it and I put it in every Instagram filter. every single one. And I posted it and I said, does it really matter if it's tinted blue or it's black and white? It's really the image, right? Kind of idea, right? That this is kind of, just kind of part of the conversation. And you can't, I don't know, people get too rigid and strict and reactive and without being thoughtful. And I think hopefully society, right? Because we went through like very reactive, which isn't wrong. Some things we needed to, as a society, we needed to react to, we needed to call out, we still need to continue to do. But I think sometimes we're just too quick to jump and to be negative and to be protective and to, I get it, but I just think we need to slow down, think
A
about it,
bit.
come together. Yeah,
Yes,
and the young people too and everything, we get to chart the path forward if we choose. If we don't choose, then the Kevin Systems of the world, one of the two Instagram people, and the Mark Zuckerbergs and the whoever, they control how we and what we do, and so I think that that's kind of ultimately like the young people who are coming out have the power to define and to decide how they're going to practice photojournalism and what ethics and values they're going to bring to the next generation of journalists has to decide those questions, right? And in every other industry outside of that, whether it's advertising, photography, or wedding photography, obviously wedding photography, even there, that's photography, right? But the whole embrace of AI there's completely different. They'll do it because you're airbrushing and you're taking out bad things, and that's totally fine and ethical, right? But you
exactly.
can't look on a wedding photographer who uses AI as you know somehow an other and not part of it's all defining things differently, and then you just hold
It's how
on
we
to it.
define. Yeah,
Yeah, hold on to what you love, and like I'm doing, you be open, but don't be afraid to say what you love, and I love this, and this and this, and kind of like embrace it, and kind of own it as well. And I can't have fun. I think sometimes I've seen through generations, we take it so seriously. And like conversation. I mean, there was a lot of hate and conversations, like broken friendships over like my simple use of just posting my photojournalism on a social media platform, right? Where everyone's like, it's evil. They're
which is
they're
crazy.
taking your copyright. Well, but there were some issues, right? I remember way back when we were all posting black pictures to tell Instagram that, but you know what they did? They changed their mind because the community made the decision. And I mean that people are like, oh, you're telling us we don't have any power. The Zuckerberg. No, you do, right? I
You
remember
fucking do.
Instagram made changes, man. You can. No, no, Arky, you kidding? Good. I'm glad you waited to the end. I would have
Said it
dropped them
before.
all. But yeah, yeah, it's a great. We just keep doing this, and is what we really have to do. Just keep doing it and keeping it, serious and thoughtful, and then making sure the right people who have power that run conferences that set tone in whatever industry, right, are forced to meet the moment as well. Because sometimes industries just they do one thing, they hold conferences and everything and just react in fear and never ever try and see the optimistic, positive side or, spin it that way. Or they ignore it altogether. They ignore it altogether. And they're just like traditional, we're doing the same thing. We can't do that. The world is very, very changed. It needs us now. That's the other thing I'll say. This the
Exactly.
last thing I think is that what I saw in my career at first, it was very lean forward society. We're leaning forward to type. We're leaning forward to talk. We're leaning forward. You had to have movement. You wanted to go to a movie, you had to get up off your butt, lean forward, go to the corner, put a quarter in a machine. Because the only place in the world that were giving you movie showtimes was the newspaper because there was no internet, right? You had to lean forward, you had to do things. Then the internet comes, photography, everything. Think about it. When I was a
Yes,
photographer, f-stop, shutter speed, golden triangle, what is this? Now, I don't even think. Blip, 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 blip. Perfect picture. Don't even think. Don't even think. Lean back. It's a
everyone.
lean back experience now. Internet, everything's lean back. You don't lean forward into anything anymore. And that's what we have to do again. So it's kind of like hard work. I used to end a slide presentation with like this picture of really dirty hands, basically trying to say, I think what's going to have to happen to the young people and those of us who are around now who still want to, be in this area of photography and think about it and fight for it and make some rules, or not rules, but just some definitions and values, ethics, is that we have to lean forward again. We have to start putting some work into it, right? You have to we have to lean forward again, and do a little bit more work. One, verifying things just as a person in the world, right? I think it's fun to lean forward in photography now because you have to push yourself to do more, fun, interesting things, which might encompass, which I love the movement. A lot of film is coming back. I mean, like literally, they're produced, so there's a lot of opportunities. It's becoming more inexpensive to do. It's kind of, that's one thing that's,
It's more
also you have to
affordable.
think about
Yeah.
as a barrier. Yeah. I mean, you can't get around that conversation. And that's a real one sometimes too, that you have to take into account. You tell a young person, hey, go shoot films. Like, hey, dude, it's like, it's not the way it used to be. But yeah, so we got to lean forward, but don't lean forward so pessimistically. We can lean forward with some cautious optimism that the new tools, might help us or expand our work. And there's opportunities there in
In
I don't know.
everything.
I think you
Absolutely.
get, I don't know. I think I'm a great example, and I think my body of work says this, is that I really do think you get what you think about. And I think a lot about hats and men in hats. And I get a lot, and basically what I'm trying to say is I think is you get what you think about a lot, and
Yes.
that manifests itself in some way. So if you're thinking positive, at least having positive thoughts towards your creative future, then that's all that's all you have to do, because then things will manifest themselves. Whether it's, hey, don't worry about all the noise around it. To me, it's really about, keeping that more kind of in tuned and practiced, because there's something that no matter what happens with technology, and oh my gosh, these robots are going to get advanced and they're going to be in our house. I mean, it's going to happen. People like, it's not
It's
BS,
already
because that's what
happening in other parts of
I
the
know. It's
world,
already,
you know?
this is time, people. Time is gonna, so
But I want to connect to this, and I want to actually ask you something else, because you lean forward with positivity, and it's an advance, and it's so admirable, because it's something very difficult to learn and to teach as well to others in that sense. But the question I have for you is, after, because you keep changing, you keep transforming, the evolution is part of yourself. But after all these transformations, what has remained unchanged in your relationship with images?
I just, it sounds so stupid and so silly, but I mean it with all my heart. I love light. Right now, I am so admiring and get such a effing joy. I'm gonna try. You guys probably won't see it, but there's some beautiful stuff that's just happening by the window. And of course, I know it's back. I'm a photographer, but you can't quite. But I'm literally in my peripheral vision. I'm admiring that and loving that. And I'm thinking, how beautiful. I love light, and I like to play with it, and I like to manipulate it, and I like to see what it looks like if I shoot it through glass. I like to see what it looks like if I change my camera setting to here. I like to see. So, like, I get really excited, and the most sustaining thing is the play of light. I could literally sit in a room and just slowly watch the light move, or I can be in a room and walk around the light, or I turn on lights or play with lights. I just love, I'm very emotional about lights and lighting. Oh my God, lighting's like a big thing, like, no, I don't think I've ever turned an overhead light on in my life. I mean, it's like a shrink, it's like, but so for me, that's the most enduring. But the thought that I didn't get to, that I do want to say, is that no matter the robots and the things that come and the technology, the one thing that never, ever, 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 ever they will take, ever, even if you say they're whatever, this sentient, the one thing that will never happen is the thing that can happen to between two human beings when we're both somewhere, and all we have to do is look at each other, maybe look at something else, and look back at each other, and there's a whole shit that happens that you can never do with them. You can't just look in the eyes of a robot, and that. You've sat in a room with someone and you've had, and little communication, that it's this subtle looking, seeing, and feeling and reacting from the heart that you can't do from the head. And right now we're all kind of in this head and this AI stuff. So to me, light just brightens my heart. We all have something where, and looking, oh my God, we have a whole photo collection of the second greatest thing, take away love that stuck with me is actually, um, I need to be fed other photographs. If I don't, I die. I literally I mean it. Like, I have tons of books. I need to look at books. I need to be re-energized by photography that I love, stuff that I love that makes me feel, oh, I mean, we all know that. You have a feeling, right? Whether it's a painting or it's a place or it's it's something, that awe kind of, oh my gosh. And so for me, it's light. For me, it's just a quiet looking at something and having an inner recognition because I know that's special to me. And then, I think it's, just trying to transfer that when I want to speak socially to people, right? So if I share images, I'm trying to just like share a small something that meant something to me at the moment, but will not mean the same thing to you. But maybe it might spark a little bit of very quiet, a little bit of joy, a little bit of recognition, or maybe a little bit of, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. In the same way other people do for me that just changed my life, that just literally like stop me. And it's simple. And if you do that visually, I really don't think you can fail in that sense. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but like I said earlier, if you've got it in you and these things keep you going and you're thinking about them and they give you goosebumps and keep following that instinct, keep following that. People, no matter where it leads, whether it's into visual creating with, AI or some other new digital tool or visual creating in some way. I think the most important thing, the thing we haven't talked about yet, is the story that people are telling, right? And what they're actually shooting and how important that becomes, because that's the window back to which we see ourselves, right? So what are we shooting? And I do find, we're shooting as a society too much of ourselves, like too many selfies, right? And we just have to turn it around and right. I'd rather see the pictures from your Thanksgiving of your crazy family than your turkey and you all doing this, in reality, right? So I think, that's a fun way kind of to think about it too, is to, realize that what we put out there and how we choose to, you know, represent and photograph the world, has a lot of power and has a lot of potential. So that's the fun side of communicating, but you have to be ready to communicate. You have to be mature to communicate in a mature way, right? So like there's not a lot of that on social media, but it's there
Yes,
and there's niches like
that's
you're
true.
and you just got to find it and curate your feed. And here's another thing people doesn't know. You can, I don't know the exact same, but you can go up there and you can reset your algorithm. So if you get into one of those doom things where you're like, this is not good, or I went down the wrong, reset it. And then don't forget, right after you reset it, go immediately click for all the things you want to have it
Exactly.
reset again. But yeah, it's again, look at that. That's lean forward work. Lean forward, do the work. Don't just sit back and let Instagram feed you it. Don't sit back and let Zuckerberg tell you the next thing is hear things in glasses, don't use them. Don't, whatever, we have power
Exactly.
and
We have power, and I
we
love
do.
this. I feel like this actually ends and concludes everything we've said so far. And Richard, like we've met for the first time, and I've met such a incredible person, apart from incredible photographer and thinker and everything that comes with you. So I truly, truly, truly thank you so, so much for being with me today. And I hope I made you feel comfortable as much as you made me feel comfortable. Thank you
I
so
appreciate
much.
that, and I thank you in the same way, just for allowing me to. You can tell that this professor hasn't been in a classroom in a little while, so I appreciate you allowing me to hold class, and I really do. I'm very really look forward to and I really do have to say this, and I mean this with all sincerity. The corner that you all are leaning forward in, the corner that you all are working in, all of the values and the things you're holding on to and the things you're showing back at us. I value, and I know a lot of other people do. And I know it's not easy work and it's not highly culturally embraced by everybody. And so sometimes you do all that work and you might not feel the recognition, but I do have to tell you, and you guys do know this, enough people tell you that all the work that you do is great, but it's important that we all always here's the other thing, photographic. Let people know, just like you say, I love your photograph, but don't do it with emojis. Use some words, people. Like, I like this photograph because, right? And what I'm trying to do for you is let you all know at Eyeshot, I love what you do, right? This is my virtual kind of to things, because it inspires me, it inspires other people, and you don't often get the likes and recognitions that you deserve. And that's just because we're being lazy, not because you guys aren't doing the work. So thank you. Thank you. It always is a pleasure. I mean, always love talking photography. And now I know I have a new friend. So anytime you want to
Yes,
call and talk, you know me, you
I
won't
will
get me
do
to stop.
that. No, absolutely not. And I will definitely do that. Thank you so much, Richard,
No,
really.
thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.